He sold his dream for $500. That's how much hope was worth to him that day. His name was Daniel Hart, 32 years old, painter by passion, barista by necessity. His apartment smelled of turpentine, instant noodles, and unfinished ambition. Canvases leaned against the walls like silent witnesses, each one half alive, each one waiting for a miracle. Every morning before work, he'd sit on his rickety stool, brush in hand, and stare at a blank canvas until the sun sliced through the dusty curtains. Sometimes he painted. Sometimes he just looked. People told him talent was nothing without luck. He told himself luck was nothing without endurance. Still, the days grew heavier. Rent was late, brushes frayed, and the only gallery that had ever displayed his work had closed months ago. Then one wet Tuesday evening, when thunder grumbled over the city and only a handful of guests stood beneath flickering bulbs at his small basement exhibition, a man walked in. His shoes gleamed like mirrors. His coat whispered money. He paused before a portrait titled "The Weight of Light," a woman walking through darkness with a lantern pressed to her chest. The man studied it for a long time. "You painted this?" he asked. Daniel nodded, almost apologetically. "It feels alive," the man murmured. "How much?" Daniel hesitated. Pricing art always felt like naming the worth of his own soul. "I was hoping for," the man cut in, $500. More than he'd made in months. Enough to pay rent, buy groceries, maybe even new paints. The words rolled around in his head like coins in an empty bowl. He wanted to say no. He wanted to say it wasn't for sale. But the rain outside sounded like debt tapping at the window. "Deal," he said softly. The man smiled, reached into his leather wallet, and handed him crisp notes. He signed a receipt with hands that shook from something deeper than gratitude. As the buyer left, Daniel stood by the door, clutching the envelope. He whispered, "Maybe this is how success begins." He didn't know it was also how innocence ends. 6 months later, the painting was gone, and with it, Daniel's faith in himself. The canvases in his apartment leaned dust-covered and lifeless. He worked long shifts at a cafe, wiping tables, sketching faces on napkins during breaks. The scent of espresso replaced that of paint thinner. Each day he told himself it was temporary. Each day the lie sounded thinner. Then one afternoon, as he scrolled through his phone on a slow lunch hour, the world stopped. There it was, the weight of light. The same soft brushstroke on the lantern flame, the same tiny scratch he'd made with the back of his fingernail. But now it hung under glass, on a white wall surrounded by marble pillars. A caption glowed beneath, "Private collection, valued at $5 million. The coffee cup slipped from his hand, shattering across the tiles. Steam hissed like laughter, the room blurred. Someone shouted his name, but he heard nothing. Just a roaring void where self-respect used to live. That night, sleep wouldn't come. He stared at the ceiling while the city buzzed below. $5 million. He replayed the night of the sale, the man's calm tone, the way he hadn't even haggled. He realized now, it hadn't been generosity, it had been strategy. "Some dreams aren't stolen," he muttered. "They're sold, too early, too cheap." He searched online until his eyes ached. The collector's name surfaced again and again. Cole Everett, patron of modern art. A visionary who spots talent before the world does. Interviews showed him smiling beside Daniel's painting, claiming it represented the courage to find light in chaos. Daniel's stomach turned. 2 weeks later, He found Cole hosting a charity auction downtown. The hall shimmered with gold chandeliers, champagne bubbles, and shallow laughter. Daniel walked in wearing his cafe uniform, still dusted with coffee grounds. Security moved toward him, but Cole saw and waved them off. "Mr. Hart," he said smoothly, "I didn't expect to see you here." "You've made quite a profit from me," Daniel said. Cole raised an eyebrow. "You made that painting. I simply gave it a bigger audience." "You stole it," Daniel hissed. Cole's smile didn't falter. "I bought it, fairly. You didn't believe in your art. I did. I took the risk, and now it's priceless." Daniel's voice cracked. "You gave yourself the spotlight." Cole leaned in, his breath steady. "No, Daniel. I made people see you." The words landed like a slap. Daniel turned and left before his anger broke into something uglier. Outside, the night bit through his thin shirt. He walked for hours, past neon lights and silent alleyways. At dawn, he stood before his window, watching rain trace down the glass like tears he refused to shed. The truth hurt more than the money. He had sold the painting, yes, but what burned was realizing he'd also sold his conviction. Days bled into weeks. He tried painting again, but his hand trembled. Each canvas felt like a lie. Finally, in a fit of rage, he carried them outside, poured thinner over them, and lit a match. Flames licked upward, bright and merciless. Orange light painted his face as ash drifted toward the stars. He whispered. He had sold a painting, but lost his reflection. When the fire died, the emptiness stayed. And inside that emptiness, something small flickered. A question. If my worth can be stolen, did I ever know it? Winter came. The cafe grew colder, customers fewer. Daniel spent his nights before a blank canvas, not painting but listening. To silence, to the faint hum of the refrigerator, to the thump of his own heart, reminding him he was still alive. One dawn, the stillness broke. His hand reached for the brush almost on its own. This time, he didn't plan or pretend. He mixed gray and ochre, colors of truth, not beauty, and painted two faceless figures. One held a brush, the other an envelope. Between them, a single coin hovered, glowing like a moon. When he finished, he titled it, "The Man Who Sold His Soul for $500. He didn't frame it. He didn't sign it. He simply photographed it in daylight and uploaded it anonymously to an art forum with the caption, "Value is not price. It's the cost of what you give away." Within days, the image exploded across the internet. Critics called it the painting that sold guilt. Influencers debated its meaning, greed, faith, exploitation. Others simply said it made them feel something they couldn't name. News outlets traced the digital breadcrumbs back to the museum that owned the weight of light. They wanted to exhibit the new piece beside the old one. Daniel agreed, on one condition: anonymity. No interviews, no reveal, just the art. On the opening night, crowds filled the museum. Phones flashed. Reporters speculated whether the mysterious artist was making a political statement or mocking capitalism. Children pointed at the glowing coin. Adults argued about symbolism. In the middle of the crowd stood Cole Everett. His expensive suit couldn't hide the tension in his shoulders. He stared at the man who sold his soul for $500. The faceless buyer extended a hand holding an envelope. For the first time, Cole saw himself, not as a patron of art, but as the hollow silhouette in the painting. He looked around nervously, as though the gallery lights themselves were judging him. A few feet away, behind a column, Daniel watched quietly. A cap shadowed his face. Nobody recognized him. He smiled faintly, not the smile of triumph, but of release. For the first time, his art spoke louder than his anger. He left before the applause started. Outside, the winter air hit his lungs like forgiveness. Streetlights glowed through fog, painting the pavement gold. The world hadn't changed, but he had. As he walked home, he thought of the fire months ago, the ashes, the emptiness, and realized it had all been preparation. Some things must burn before they can illuminate. The voice that once cursed him now whispered, "Sometimes, selling your art teaches you its worth. Sometimes, losing the world's price reveals your soul's value." He passed a store window and caught his reflection for the first time in months. He didn't look defeated anymore, just human, finally enough. Back at his apartment, the single canvas he'd kept leaned against the wall. He sat before it, brush in hand, ready to begin again. Somewhere across the city, two paintings hung side by side, one bought, one earned, both priceless now. In the hush of that moment, Daniel Hart became what he'd always wanted to be, seen, not sold. We all sell pieces of ourselves to survive. Our time, our talent, our truth. But sometimes the smallest price tags carry the heaviest regrets. Would you sell your dream for $500? If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, share it with someone who needs the lesson, and leave a comment about what you think the real price of a dream is. A new story drops soon. Stay tuned, and remember, every parable hides a truth worth finding.